I'm pressing record. I'm doing the intro.
Good 4 p.m. everybody, and welcome to Single Entendre! Welcome to my sweaty little box. Please make yourself comfortable, remove layers, use a flyer as a fan, whatever you need to do. Just a little content note up top. This show does deal with some very mild themes, actually, and I think it'll be fine. So on that note, please welcome Nicola Macri! Not. 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 Let's not.
Thank you so much for coming, for being here. It's really exciting for me to spend the next hour with you, and I'm very thrilled that you chose to spend the next hour with me. Bold choice, I respect it. You've got good taste. So, a little bit about me. My name is Nicola Macri. Back home, I am known as Australia's premier asexual comedian. Which is to say, I am not known. That's okay. Are there any other aces in today? Anyone on the ace? Oh my goodness, that's more than I've ever seen in my life. How many do we have? Let's do a head count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's going on over this side? Amazing. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's be friends. Just friends. For the rest of you, you're going to get a little bit of an education today. It's going to be fun. If you do want to take notes throughout, that's encouraged. In fact, I have been assuming that anybody throughout the run who's had a little notepad out is just a very diligent student of asexuality 101. And that's how I've gaslit myself into not being stressed about reviews. It's worked. So firstly and most fundamentally with asexuality 101, asexuality just means that we experience no or very little sexual attraction. It's quite simple actually. Although, all you've missed is that asexuality means that we experience no or very little sexual attraction, and about half the room is which is very exciting. But it is quite simple actually. You can go. No, not really. Please don't, because it is only that one thing. There are several things that it isn't, and there are some misconceptions still about asexuality, so I'm just going to clear some of those up. So it's not the same as like abstinence or celibacy, which is the choice not to act on attraction that is there for whatever reason, be it religious, health-related, or some kind of weird self-deprivation kink. There's no moral element to it. Once somebody came to this show and tried to commend me on my moral character for just not being slutty, basically, but it's like trying to commend me for refraining from the urge to eat this chair. The inclination was never there. It also isn't a moral judgment or prudishness about other people's sex lives. Go for gold, as far as we're concerned. We really don't care. We really don't care. Please stop telling us. Thank you so much. It's not a trauma response. I've actually had a very stable and comfortable upbringing. It's a miracle I'm even a comedian at all. It's not the lack of desire where attraction used to be. That's just marriage, as far as I've been told. And it's not some weird self-defense mechanism that we have built up in response to the fact that nobody wants to have sex with us. Right? Some of us are really hot, actually. And some of us have great personalities. So I think that one's less a misconception and more just bullying. Not very nice, but another way to think of it is other sexualities are defined by attraction to certain genders or to uncertain genders. It's a non-binary joke. Asexuality, sexually attracted to nothing. Not the concept of nothingness. We're not the void. Although, if I'm being really honest. Avoid. But that's not asexuality, no, that's something else. That's depression. Gotta mix stuff. So we're not attracted to the void. We have our void where attraction would be. The A of asexuality is our void, and we avoid sexuality. The A is also the A that's in LGBTQIA+. That's us. We're the A, not fucking allies. Not fucking anyone. Usually. I know I put my little content non-warning at the top of the show, but I will also add that I will be swearing a little bit throughout the show today, so buckle the fuck up for that, cunts! That is the last time that I refer to you as cunts throughout the show. Although I guess that depends on how the hour progresses. That's up to you guys. But I do kind of love swearing, not just because I'm Australian. I really like using all of the linguistic tools that are available to me for my expression, you know, and that includes swearing. I just love language. I love the possibilities of language, the malleability of language, the nuances that we can create. Language is a playground for me, you know, and language can be a gift. Like, there's plenty of people out there who don't believe that asexuality is like a real valid thing, but whether or not we can fully, like, empirically prove it to an extent that it satisfies everyone in the world, the mere existence of the concept has already given us language to label and name and talk about and relate about complicated things that were already true about ourselves and our experiences. And that's kind of everything, right? Language is a gift. I just love words. The word asexual is kind of a shame, though, because it already had like a sciencey meaning, right? Which means that sometimes you'll get mean nerds will come up to you and be like, oh, you're asexual. That's what mean nerds do. Does that mean that you can reproduce without the formation and fusion of gametes? They say it all the time, right? Like a plant. Are you guys plants? And the answer to that obviously is yes. We are plants, one and all. In fact, all of those people that put their hands up before when I asked if there were any aces in, I paid them to sit there and say that. Plants. When there's no aces in the room, I really have to shoehorn that joke back in, but it's always worth it. It is kind of weird that we didn't come up with a brand new word for asexuality, though, because if there's anything that aces love as a community, it's coming up with new words, right? We love to coin some vocab. We love a Greek root, if no other kind. Okay, quick poll. Who fully understood that joke? One, good. Thank you for the polite laughter anyway. I really appreciate it. The problem with that joke is that it only really makes sense if you understand some Australian slang, but it's actually quite important to the rest of the show dramaturgically. So I can't just cut it for the international audience, you know. So since I've brought the joke to you, I will now bring you to the joke and then we can all have fun. So all you need to know is that in Australia, sometimes root is used to mean like fuck, both as a noun and a verb, or as somebody aptly pointed out the other day, a doing word. So you can have a root with someone, or you can root someone, or neither. It's up to you. So now that we're on the same page, let's do the joke again. It's going to be so much better. Okay. So it's weird that we couldn't come up with a brand new word for asexuality, right? Because this is anything that asexuals love. It's a community. It's coming up with new words. We love to coin some vocab. We love a Greek root, if no other kind. See, explaining jokes makes them better. Does anybody need help with the Greek part? We're all on the same page. Good. Now, the reason that we have to coin a lot of new words is because the definition of asexuality, as I said, is quite simple, but every individual asexual person is asexual differently. So a lot of what I've already said today and what I will continue to say won't apply to all of the other aces in the room and other people that you meet, because we all have different types and levels and circumstances and orientations of attraction and desire and drive and behaviour, and we have words for all of them. And, you know, it's great. Words are a gift, and it's really helpful to be able to label that stuff. But It does also get kind of overwhelming and like weirdly personal and then counterproductive to the education of non-asexual people, who we also have a word for. It's allosexual, which is fun because I can go, hello, hellos! Which is barely a joke, it's just fun for me. But for example, I could tell you that I personally am a sex-neutral, asexual, bisexual, homoromantic, autochorus sexualist. But I can barely get through it. You don't know what I mean. If you did know what I meant, I'd actually be quite uncomfortable with the amount of personal information that you have about me. And anyway, it's a risk I take. For my ace audience. But what it all boils down to, is actually a much simpler and clearer phrase that I could use instead, which is no. That pretty much covers it. But even without the confusing lingo, it is kind of awkward coming out as asexual. Like, what I'm doing right now in this moment is I have spent a lot of money to travel all the way across the planet and hire out this hot little box and beg people to come and join me, and then those who do, I just tell you all that I don't want to bang any of you. And you didn't ask. It's a bit rude, I'm sorry. Coming out as ace is like a matter of trying to delicately friend zone the whole human race. I'm sure you guys are great. I just don't see you that way. But the blanket friend zone and the blanket no are not actually perfectly applicable to my life all the time, because I am asexual, but I am not aromantic, which is another word which we have come up with. And it is a one-word adjective, aromantic, meaning the lack of romantic attraction, and not the two-word noun phrase, aromantic, meaning the opposite of that. Language. It's also not the one-word adjective, aromatic. Despite what autocorrect will tell you. So plenty of ace people will have romantic relationships in their lives that may or may not involve sex for various reasons. And personally, I am 32 and I can count the number of relationships that I have been in on no hands. I can count them on the bleeding stumps of somebody who got caught stealing from Aladdin's marketplace. Twice. It's done. And I was like, totally fine with that for a really long time, right? Because I understand the struggles that people go through when they pursue romantic relationships. Because it's like the basis of all media. And I have seen all media, because I have a lot of free time, because I don't pursue romantic relationships. And I actually remember the exact moment when I realised that a successful romantic relationship was not inevitable or guaranteed or even necessary in my future. It was 2012, and my favourite celebrity couple had just broken up. And I was like, oh, love is a scam. And I was crushed, honestly, for a good 12 seconds, and then a switch flipped in my brain, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have so much time for TV! And Rita, I did have time for TV. But ironically, I couldn't actually watch my favourite TV shows for a while at the time, because my favourite celebrity couple were in both Parks and Recreation and Arrested Development. Yes, I always scan the audience for knowing nods at that point to see if anybody would have joined my Amy Poehler and Will Arnett divorce support group at the time. Yeah, there was pizza. 10 years later, I'm like, ew, why was she ever with him? And that's growth. But I do love TV and movies and books and theatre and comedy, kind of. But after several years of really immersing myself in all of this media in really quite a fun and freeing way, it somehow turned the corner into like drowning myself in a steady stream of Jane Austen content in quite a sad way. And that's when I realised that I am, unfortunately, very full of love. I'm actually a double Pisces, sun and moon. For those of you who don't speak astrology, what that means is I'm quite full of love. Context clues will get you everywhere, actually. You'll be fine on that one. And I do want to put that love somewhere, right? Because it's not doing anybody any good in here. Like Jane Austen is long dead. She's not even profiting from it. So what's the point? And, you know, a lot of that love is, you know, for my family and friends that I do show, but there is a specifically romantic untapped well in there. But I think the fact that I am like open to romantic love isn't something that the people around me would necessarily assume about me, because I'm a double Pisces, but I'm also a Capricorn rising. And what that means is that on the exterior I seem quite cold, quite serious, quite work oriented, as though, you know, even if I weren't asexual, I'd still rather fuck a briefcase than anything else. It's a very specific kind of leather play. Are there any Capricorns solemnly nodding along? Yes, in the back. Yeah, it's always one. One time said, "It's the smell of it." I said, "Ew." But you're not wrong. But even though like my openness to love is something that the people around me don't know about me, it is something that the online advertising algorithms absolutely know about me. Because the robot spies that work for Google are certainly perfectly aware that I'm not in any kind of relationship, and yet I am almost exclusively shown ads for engagement rings. Why? Just because I constantly seek out and interact with engagement ring content. Just because my whole YouTube watch history is just clips from Say Yes to the Dress. Maybe I'm just really into toxic mother-daughter relationships. I literally watched one this morning. It was really toxic. But no, you know, the robot spies are correct. You know, I do want to find someone and an oval cut solitaire on a twisted silver band and an off-the-shoulder fit and flare with floral lace, according to my research. But being asexual for me, what that means is that my vagina will just not be helping out in the search for my person, right? She's not clocking into the job. And I understand that her opinion wouldn't necessarily be the most authoritative. Like, this is how I picture allosexual dating, correct me if I'm wrong. So you're out and about in the world, this is how you walk, and you've got your pelvic radars on, right? And at some point it's like, beep, 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 they beep, yes? Or are they usually on vibrate? So like, beep, 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 this one, you're like, okay, and you like get to know that person, and then eventually you might be like, oh no, absolutely not, that one, no offense, I'm sure you're great, I just don't see you that way. And then you go back out in the world, you know, and then it's like, bzzz, and you're like, okay, and you like carry on from there, you know. But I understand that it's not the most efficient system, again, from all of the media, because allosexuals have never once in history shut the fuck up about how hard it is to find someone to fuck forever. But without her, like, specific enthusiasm to pursue particular people and, like, create me a shortlist out of all of humanity, I'm at a bit of a loss of where to start dating-wise, right? I did figure I can't, like, spend the rest of my life complaining about how hard dating is if I didn't at least try an app. So I did. I downloaded Hinge. Has anybody used Hinge? So as I say, I downloaded the Hinge app, and then I didn't open it for 3 months, and then my whole phone got stolen. So you can't say I didn't try. The universe was like, not for you. Absolutely not. I still think it was probably like a better experience than a lot of people have with dating apps. Like, it was very expensive, and I had to get a new phone number, which was a whole rigmarole. But throughout that whole process, not one person showed me their penis. So chalk one up for Nicola. But dating app woes or no, it's difficult to find someone to love in a world where love is constantly conflated with sex, right? It's in the language. Love is one of the most common euphemisms for sex. We say making love. Movies have love scenes with good loving. Lovers, right? Lovers. Why does the word lovers have to refer to somebody that you're having sex with? Like, I've taken a lover. That very common phrase that everybody says these days. It doesn't even connote like a long-term commitment, despite the very best efforts of that one Taylor Swift album. It's literally a word for someone that you're having casual sex with. Lover. I hate that, because when you co-opt the word love to mean sex, you're reducing all love to romantic love, and all romantic love to sex, and that doesn't work for all of us. I remember specific moments growing up of realising how often love actually meant sex in music in particular. I think it's supposed to be kind of thrilling, like it's one of those like playground rumours where you're like, oh my god, yes. Did you hear that this song is actually about sex? Let's listen to it again, but this time we're going to think about penises. And I'd be like, no thanks. Because it wasn't thrilling for me, right? It was just kind of deflating as a romantic asexual long before I had the terminology for that. Like, I hate to be the one to break it to you guys today, but that is not a love shack. I'm sorry, yeah. It's not. It's a fuck shack. No one's composing romantic poetry in there. The closest they're getting is to compare a car to a whale and then claim that either of those things might sell. So, you know, no love, just bang banging. Vertically, apparently, because it is on the door, baby. I don't know what they meant by tin roof rusted, and I hope I never find out. Another kind of awkward thing for me with music is that I always feel kind of violated when songs specify that they're directed at all girls, right? Because I'm girls. I don't want to be implicated in anybody's desires. Leave me out of it. And you get some songs that go so far as to start listing different categories of girl just to make sure they're being fully comprehensive in their objectification. There were a lot of them a little while back, and there's songs that are like, all the blonde girls come to the dance floor. And I'm like, well, that's not me, so I can stay put. Like, all those Latin girls. I'm like, is he allowed to discriminate based on race? It's like, all those tall girls, all those girls who love to party. And I'm like Rumpelstiltskinning it, like just hopping around evading description. Tee-hee-hee, I'll never guess It's like, all those thick girls. Oh. With the round booties. Oh, thank God, my worthless ass saves the day again. And then he's quite clearly getting to the bottom of his list, right? It's like, and I guess all those half Italian girls with glasses and film degrees who have no sense of style, so they just find one outfit that kind of works and buys it in multiple to wear every day like a cartoon character. Shit. Like, dance those sensible shoes over here, girl. Crap, now I gotta go dance with that fuckhead, right? But it's okay, because by now, like, the dance floor is just absolutely teeming with a very diverse array of different women. So I can barely see the guy, you know, and anyway, I don't actually have to do anything because I'm not at the club. I'm at the supermarket. And the song's just playing on the in-store radio, and I'm staring at cereal and having, you know, an existential crisis about a hypothetical invitation to a metaphysical dance floor. You know, those songs. I don't like them. Hey, is there anybody in here called Monica? Erica? Alright, what else are there? Let's just get me Rita, Tina, Sandra, Mary, Jessica. Oh, which one?
Sandra.
Sandra! Welcome, Sandra. Mary, Jessica, Angela, Pamela. Sandra, if you're anything like me, then I am so sorry for what Lou Bigger did to you. Because that was next level when he started listing women by name in Mambo number 5, right? I don't want to assume though, how do you feel about that song?
I'm okay.
You're okay? You're right with the attention? You're like, it is me.
I'm a Leo, so yeah.
Oh,
Shower me.
Sandra, that makes so much sense. But not me. I'm just a meek little double Pisces, you know. So that was the scariest day of my life when I first heard that song. Especially because my name totally fits the rhythmic pattern, right? A little bit of Nicola, high risk name. I thought I was in the clear, and then we get to the end of the chorus. He goes, a little bit of you. I'm you. You got me with the sudden last-minute pivot to second person. Now, Sandras and Ritas, you actually have it the worst or the best, depending on how you see it, because you get listed in the verse and the chorus, right? He really wants to fuck Sandras and Ritas. But I think Sandra, as long as you stay out of the sun. Which also works for you as a Leo. So yeah, good on you. I don't know if anybody did like a very, very close reading of my flyer, but I did put a little disclaimer that this show does presuppose a full working knowledge of the lyrics to Mambo No. 5 by Lou Bega. Mambo's number 1 through 4, not necessarily. But also the lyrics to Love Shack by the B-52s, and a very unhinged song about girls and dance floors that I made up. But just to sum up what we've learned so far, asexuality means the fear of being sexually desired by Lou Bega. Lou Bega-phobia. Yeah, new word. I did the show in Adelaide, and an audience member came up to me and suggested that I could also call it pentamumbophobia, which is really good, because that's 2 Greek roots. That's a really good word. But it's not just music that's rife with sex, right? And it's not just the word love. Some members of the queer community have trouble accepting asexuality as part of the community because they don't think that we're like adequately oppressed. And while that's kind of a weird metric to use at all, and things like conversion therapy and worse are a reality for some members of the asexual community, for me, the ace struggle on a day-to-day basis is just the constant alienation of living in a world that is so fundamentally obsessed with sex and assumes that sexuality is universal. It's like being on the outside of an in-joke all the time. And I've come to realise that this isn't even an exclusively ace attitude. I've had plenty of allosexuals at this show say they really relate to this element of it. So, you know, I'm not trying to gatekeep my discontent. You're all welcome aboard. But, you know, it's not just the ways that puritanical people complain about, with how sex is all over the media and advertising, but also, and I think more insidiously, in the way that sex has just pervaded the language, right? Because English vocabulary has been a minefield of sexual innuendo for hundreds of years. And that's why I think double entendre is actually the easiest form of comedy, because we've made so many things a sexual euphemism that it's now much harder to come up with 5 fucking minutes of talking without encountering something sexual. Like in that sentence, I just said, harder, come and fucking. And yeah, fucking, right? Like, I am upset as a swearing enthusiast that the best swear is a sex swear. In fact, most of them are. But also I used the double entendre of fucking earlier when I said not fucking allies, and that joke always kills, and I'm very conflicted about it. But sex can be really sticky. Linguistically. Right, it's like as soon as a word kind of picks up a sexual connotation, you can kind of never safely say it again without risking evoking the great like spectre of sex, right? It's just gonna show up and start looming in the background of your conversation like And some people find that quite titillating, right? They like nothing more than to be reminded at every moment that sex exists, but, you know, not me. It just bums me out, like I always resent it. I hate that guy. Language is my playground, but unfortunately it's the kind of playground that constantly has perverts peeping in through the fences. Like, get out of here, perverts! Just trying to have a swing. Also a sex word. But like, sex is so overtly ubiquitous in our culture, so why does it also have to hide coyly behind perfectly functional words that we need? Sex is just everywhere in the language, and I think I've come to realise it more and more, but it started for me on that day in primary school when you learn that rubber can mean condom, and then you learn what a condom is. And all of a sudden, nobody can ask to borrow each other's rubbers anymore without getting snickered at. Everybody has to make a hard pivot to eraser, and it all just kind of snowballs from there, right? While we're talking about condoms, I do unfortunately have a story here. When I was like 13, I joined an online forum, and my username was, this is very embarrassing, but I do have to say it for the joke. It is important dramaturgically for the rest of the show. This is the most raw and vulnerable that this Fringe show does get, is me sharing my username with you. Alright, here it is. Trojan_princess. Oh. Yeah, and that's how I learned that Trojan is a condom brand. Because lots of random men on the internet let me know. I was just like a nerdy tween Greek mythology enthusiast who thought that the fall of Troy was a good story and an even better Orlando Bloom film. Because he was my compulsory heterosexuality object of choice at the time. But also, Trojan is a terrible name for a condom brand, if you think about it for like 1 second. Because the Trojans are literally famous for having their defences breached by the Greeks, right? That's kind of their whole thing. It was a weird choice for a specifically defensive product. Like, Trojan! Come on in, honey. Not really sure what that joke was. I think I liked it. But I would try to explain this problem to these men on the internet, right? And they'd be like, too late, I'm already horny. Damn it. But I was really playing on hard mode growing up, not just with my choice in usernames, but also in school I played the flute. And I don't know how many of you can cast your mind back to the culture surrounding the American Pie movie when that came out, but that's when I was in primary school, yeah, and playing the flute was about the most sus thing that a person could do at the time. And this show has actually been a really long time coming, because I remember the very first joke that I wrote in my childhood joke notebook, which I didn't realise was a thing that all children didn't have. And I went to law school like an idiot. The very first joke that I wrote was something along the lines of, if a flute looks like a penis to you, you need to go to the doctor. Which I do stand by, you know, there's so many knobbly bits. Very shiny. Something is wrong. But even just like the language of day-to-day life is tainted with euphemism, right? Let me just take you through a day of trying to evade the spectre. So how does your day start? Probably sleeping, right? Sleeping is fraught, you know, the concept of sleeping with someone, sleeping together, just cannot exist platonically in our language. How many of us have slept with our pets? Everyone's so reluctant to put their hands up. It's the most wholesome thing a person can do, but you sound like a fucking pervert if you talk about it. You can't even say that you bring your pets to bed with you, because anything that happens in the bedroom or in bed is a problem as well, right? Like, please, let me talk about how good I am in bed. I have never had sex, but I am fantastic in bed. I have great stamina in bed. I always get a good 8 hours. I'm adventurous in bed. I read all kinds of books. I'm even sensitive in bed. That's where I do most of my crying. It's okay. I'm a double Pisces. It's just something my face does when it's bored. It's not even true. Like, during the Fringe, I've been doing a lot more of my crying in public. So, you make it out of your absolute cesspit of sin that is your bed, right? Maybe go have a shower. Famously great place for a think, but don't let your mind wander anywhere too interesting, because God forbid later on you try and tell your co-workers what you thought about in the shower this morning. HR will get involved. You go outside, if it's a warm day and you slip up at any point and say, I'm hot, you're going to get hit with a, yeah you are. Much worse if it's raining. You cannot say, I'm wet. Certainly not, I'm moist. Deb is available. I'm pretty sure we haven't effectively sexualized Deb just yet. I have tried it out. I do sometimes get a but it is preferable to a so I'll take it, you know. You have to eat multiple times a day, but food is its own absolute minefield, isn't it? Especially if you're thinking of eating out. But you know what my favourite food is? Eggplant, as we call it in Australia, right? But that's just fully a sex code now, right? The eggplant emoji is the definitive literal sex symbol of our digital culture. But I don't really understand why it's like the sex vegetable. Like, I understand that it's vaguely phallic, but again, it's in quite an alarming way. I can't really imagine would be very appealing to many people. You need to go to the doctor. But even the name, right, eggplant, not a sexy name, eggplant. To be fair, it's quite reproductive in nature. What is a fertile uterus if not an eggplant? In the industrial sense. That's not what they mean when they send you the emoji, right? They're not like, here's your womb. Maybe it is. I don't really know what the Aloes are up to. It's still mostly Jane Austen that I'm engaging with media-wise, and she doesn't talk about emojis at all, so I don't know. Of course, there is a sexier name, right? That's used over here. Aubergine. Much sexier. Aubergine. I'm a lot more involved in the burlesque community back home than you would think. I'm the videographer. Because, like, what safer person in your community to have hard drives just teeming with titties than this guy? But there's a performer over there, and her burlesque name is Francine Aubergine. She gets it, right? It's a sexy name. Nobody's called Fregplant Eggplant. I checked. It's available if anybody wants to take it while the Fringe is still on. You can be Fregplant Eggplant. I'll come and film you. Even like aubergine emoji sounds a little bit more romantic, right? Aubergine emoji or emobergine. That's quite good, actually. Why am I doing all your work for you, Aloes? Does having a vibrant sex life distract people from prime pun and portmanteau potential? That checks out, honestly. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But like, is eggplant sexy? Is aubergine sexy? Like, come to think of it, have I been brought to climax by a particularly good eggplant parmesan? Of course. Who among us? In fact, I could, come to think of it. Correct. I'm going to give you a moment there to get it back down. No, that was a test. You're not supposed to laugh at that joke. So correct on that silence and that slide. Ooh, sounds very good. That's what I'm going for the double entendres in this show. Any other jokes that you haven't laughed at were also tests. Sausages. I love sausages. I love Italian sausages in particular. I love a thick, firm Italian sausage. You know, I am half Italian. This is part of my culture. It's very difficult for me not to safely be able to talk about my love for a well-dried cacciatore. With chili in it, you know, the hotter and harder the better. Especially my uncles. He's a really good butcher. He is, it's true. He's famous for it in Perth. Everybody loves my uncle's special spicy sausage. And this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to foods that have just fallen victim to the implications of their phallic forms forever, right? Just try eating a banana in public. And I don't even want to talk about nuts. But in a similar vein, I've been getting into sports more recently with the Women's World Cup, but my god, the havoc that is being wreaked by the word balls over there. Absolute carnage. You know, throughout the day you can go wherever you need to go, but there's no going down. Getting up in certain circumstances. There's certainly no coming. We've well established that one. You can't get it on or get off, and there's no going inside anything. You can do what you need to do. You can do this or that, but God forbid you get caught doing it. It! The most neutral generic pronoun in the English language is understood to mean sex. Pack it up, boys. That's it. That's it. You know that Stephen King book? It's a romance novel. Romance novel, that means porn, right? Love is sex and romance is porn. Cool. In fact, just being an adult, right, and having an adult life riddled with adult content and adult themes, that's porn too, adult themes. Not taxes and the ever-encroaching awareness of your own mortality. Porn. So you finally make it home from your relentlessly sexy day. All you want to do is just like sink into the couch and maybe put something on the telly. You know, Netflix and chill. You know how mad I was when that became a code for sex date. That's all I want to do with my free time is Netflix and chill. Do you know who I would like to Netflix and chill with? A live-in gal pal. There's some giggles there. So if you're not familiar with the phrase live-in gal pal, I will enlighten you because it's a fun one. So this was a phrase coined by the celebrity gossip media as a bogus description of what was clear lesbian activity between two Hollywood best friends. Right? So you'd see headlines like Kristen Stewart and her live-in gal pal hold hands outside hardware store. You're like, I don't think they're just pals, those guys. In the next photo, they're actively kissing. And the caption's like, isn't friendship great? Because of how ridiculous this like erasure was, it was kind of like reclaimed as a phrase by the members of the lesbian community to start referring to their actual lesbian lovers, as it were. But if that phrase now carries that meaning in my community, how am I supposed to say that what I want out of a long-term committed relationship is just like a nice lady roommate who supports my goals, braids my hair, and pays my vagina no heed? I want to live in gal pal, to Netflix and chill, and occasionally sleep with. So if you filthy allies would quit appropriating our passive platonic lifestyles with unsorted sexual euphemism, that would be great. You know who has a lot to answer for here is William Shakespeare. Because that man almost single-handedly immortalised the sexualisation of just about everything, right? I tried to do my research and give you an exact number of how many euphemisms he used in his work, and what I found was a 350-page book called A Dictionary of Shakespeare's Sexual Puns and Their Significance. So it's a lot. 350 pages of words to basically mean sex, penis, and vagina. For example, sometimes apparently he would say to die, but he meant to orgasm. So I guess Romeo and Juliet had a happy ending after all. Hey, true story, when I first wrote that joke, I did not initially intend the double entendre on happy ending. The joke makes sense without it. The double entendre was just lying there in front of me. It's that easy, is what I'm trying to say. But gosh, what hope do we have as asexuals if we don't have safe access to happy endings? Not to mention dreams and fantasies, all sexy. And this one of Shakespeare's really kills me, right? Non-orgasmically. You know, the play Much Ado About Nothing. Apparently nothing could be understood to mean vaginas. A think that one does have something to do with the void. But you see, what Shakespeare has done here is he has sexualized everything. And then, when he was done, for his final trick, he turned around and sexualized nothing! How did he do that? We were like, oh great, thanks Shakespeare, I guess we're left with nothing. And he's like, nope, yoink, that's sexy too now. Further complicates the meaning of asexuality. Oh, we're attracted to nothing. Not that kind of nothing! God damn it, Shakespeare! If that's even your real name, because please, Shakespeare, oh, I bet you do, you dirty old bitch! Nothing isn't even the most existentially insidious euphemism that I've come across, though. Believe it or not, old Willie Shaker was bested on that one by religion, conservatism, how people have chosen to express the concept of premarital abstinence. Saving yourself for marriage. Yourself. Think about that one. Yourself, your whole identity, your very essence of being is understood to mean your sexual activity. Yourself. Jesus fucking Christ. Now I have two competing theories about why sex is just so prevalent in our language. Either sex is actually quite, so interesting to allosexual people that they refuse to stop thinking about it even when they're doing seemingly benign things like writing their grocery lists. Or sex is actually so uninteresting and yet important that you have to like dress it up in a layer of mystery to keep things exciting, right? Like a linguistic masquerade ball with thousands of different disguises, but then at the end of the night you take off the masks and it turns out everyone is boners. It's not a party I want to go to. But you've trapped us here and we can't leave. I do suspect it's actually like a third thing, which is, throughout history, sex has been so taboo and censored and only made more interesting by being so, that people like Shakespeare were desperate to talk about it, understandably, but all they could do was use the language that was available to them and just kind of stuff sex behind it. But it's not the Elizabethan era anymore, we can talk about sex now. Salt and Pepper opened that door for us. So let us walk through it, and can we have the language back, please? You don't need it anymore. I know I've done quite a bit of ranting now about what is, at the end of the day, quite innocuous words. Like, there's not a lot of real harm in the grander scheme of human struggle, but other than just feeling kind of alienated and bummed out and bored and annoyed by euphemism, I also hate it because I think it's already so difficult for us to properly understand each other without creating all of these traps in our conversations, right? Human communication is something that we really struggle with, and it leads to so many conflicts and issues. And I'm not just talking about the problems that arise when we don't agree on what we mean when we say things like cancel culture. Like, I'm talking about how problems arise when we don't agree on what we mean when we say things like next Saturday. So my day job, I sell lotto tickets, and every time somebody asks for a ticket for next Saturday, we have to have that whole second clarifying conversation with the arm thing to determine if they meant the next Saturday coming, this Saturday, or Saturday of next week, next Saturday. And it's honestly like 50-50 on what they mean. But they always look at me like I'm an idiot for having to clarify, because people can't imagine that other people are seeing it differently than how they see it, but we're not really all speaking the same language. I'd like to do a little experiment here, if you'll indulge me. Imagine that we live together, right? Are you imagining it? Sorry about the dishes, I will get to them. So we live together, I write grated cheese on the grocery list, and then you go to the supermarket. So who's come back with a bag of something like a cheddar, something on its way to a mozzarella, anything that's going to melt if you put it on a cheese toastie or a pizza, a grilled cheese, who's got something like that? Yes? Most of us, good. And who's got like a little bag of powdery parmesan that you're going to pop on your pasta? Anybody? Yes, and who's got a block of cheese that I can grate myself because it's a cost of living crisis? Any lactose intolerance among us? Any other responses? No? Cool. So here's what's happened. I wrote grated cheese on the grocery list, and my dad went to the shops and he came back with a little bag of powdery parmesan. Naturally, I admonished him for his foolish behaviour. But he insisted that that is what grated cheese is, and what I wanted was actually shredded cheese. And I was like, oh, as If, mate, I wrote fucking shredded cheese then, fuck! All over the grocery list, because I was in quite a heightened emotional state. Because I thought I was about to make a grilled cheese and I had been thwarted by his inanity. So I went to the shops myself, right, to get my own damn cheese, and I'm in the cheese aisle and looking at the cheese, and it turns out all the cheese that I wanted was clearly labelled shredded cheese. The Parmesan said grated. So, no, I didn't have a leg to stand on. I was wrong. Except I wasn't really wrong because, like, the vast majority of people that I've asked this question of have agreed with me. And that's how language works in practical terms. It's just what we collectively agree that words mean. But my dad was technically correct. And that's my favourite kind of correct to be. So I was fuming, right? But I was also just fascinated because how did this miscommunication even come about? It's not like it was a geographical variation or a cultural difference. This was a misunderstanding within my home with my father, who raised me and taught me how to speak about cheese, a fundamental pillar of our existence. These moments when you realise that you're not actually living in the same world as the people around you, they totally blow my mind. Another time, I was at a 21st birthday party, and the cake was happening. I used to say we were doing the cake, and then someone fucking giggled, so now it's the cake was happening. This person blew out their candles, and they got them all in one go. Now bear with me here, we're all going to learn something. So half of the party shouted, "No boyfriends!" and the other half shouted, "One boyfriend!" and then there was a pause, and then we all shouted, "What?" Because it turns out there are two different systems for determining how many boyfriends somebody has when they blow out their candles. For me and everybody that I had ever met up until this point in my life, it is how many candles are left after the first blow. Has anybody heard of this system?
We just make wishes.
As asexuals, there is so much we can do with cake. That's just a joke for the aces. But for the aliens that invaded this party, it is how many total blows it takes to get rid of all of the candles. Has anybody heard of this system before? And who has never heard of the candle boyfriend paradigm? And this is your moment, yes. Because that would have been even weirder for you at that party. Doing the cake and then suddenly everybody's shouting about boyfriends. You're like, he's married! But also, this isn't like an exclusively Australian thing that just doesn't translate over here. I've had US and Canadian and some UK people who have said that they are familiar with one or other of these systems, and also in Australia about a third of the people are like, no idea what the fuck you're talking about, mate. But the thing is, at this party, everybody had heard of the system, but nobody had heard of the other version of the system until this very moment when it all converged in an exact 50-50 split and came to life, right? Crazy. And everyone was just kind of like, wow, weird, and just carried on with whatever allosexual party activities they were getting up to. But I couldn't let this go. I had to get to the bottom of it. So I went around like polling everybody on like, what system they use, and then various demographic data, like where did you grow up? What's your cultural background? What tax bracket are your parents in? To try and get to the bottom of it. And what we learned was nothing, because I didn't write anything down and was drunk. But we did learn that I am very fun at parties. But the thing I've come to realise since about this candle boyfriend situation is that we probably actually had encountered people who were doing it differently from us before. We just didn't really notice. Because most of the time we're not really paying proper attention to exactly what is actually being said around us. And my theory here was kind of confirmed when two of my aunties came to see this show, and they insisted that they have never heard of this candle boyfriend thing before, when I can confirm that they were at every family birthday party that I went to and had growing up. Our brains just filter out so much information just so that we can function, right? It's just how they work. We go around basically assuming that everyone pretty much agrees with us, unless we've decided that they're fucking stupid, and then we assume that they disagree with us, right? And it's actually really difficult for our brains to take on and like absorb and process brand new unexpected information, especially when it's coming from an unexpected perspective, and especially when there is cake imminent. And your brain is very busy trying to strategize how you're going to get one of the strawberries. There's never enough strawberries. But I guarantee you that there are more consequential things than like cheese and candles that we are not like living in the same world about. And that's why I wish that we could just use the language to say exactly what we mean, right? A single entendre. Because human nature has already built so many barriers to our understanding. So if you want to talk about sex, please just talk about sex. You could probably be talking about sex more, really. But by refusing to talk about it plainly, we've allowed it to make our whole language its smokescreen, and now we can't talk plainly about anything else. Objects, foods, behaviours, fundamental essences of being, the very basic building blocks of our grammar, right? And maybe sex is so prevalent in our language because it really is just that fundamental to humanity. Just like the people encouraging us to save ourselves for marriage imply, I fuck, therefore I am. And no, it's not a bad argument, like, you know, the reproduction, the biological imperative for the continuation of the human race, does, you know, quite strongly rely on sex, after all, but the Venn diagram of human existence and sexuality can't just be one circle, because here I am, existing asexually. And if sex really deserves everything it's given by the language, I don't count as a human. That's just the logical conclusion of that argument. And the thing is, I do. Hello, I'm alive. I experience joy sometimes. And I might not have had any romantic relationships, but I still, like, exult in human connection, right? And isn't that what it means to be human? To live, laugh, and love. And I do that just as well as any allosexual woman with very basic taste in decor. Maybe better. And furthermore, I have passed like 90% of those online Are You a Robot human verification tests. Some of them are really hard. Like verified human, right? You know, I don't know how it works, but I know that double entendre and euphemism aren't really going anywhere. Like, it really is just too easy a laugh, and I couldn't resist putting a couple of proper double entendre jokes in this show about my problem with them, so no, they're not going anywhere. But since it has a name that allows us to talk about it, do you know where that name, the word euphemism, comes from? It is of Greek root. And it means the use of a favourable word in place of an inauspicious one. Which means that the benign vocabulary of daily life that has been co-opted for euphemism is favourable, and sex is inauspicious. Asexuality good, sex bad. I didn't make the rules. The Greeks did. Turns out the Greek roots loved the asexuals back all along. And the Greeks rooted more than anyone, so they would know. And your shitty Trojan condoms cannot defend against that mighty Greek truth. Thanks. That is the end of the show. You were correct to clap there. It would have been weird if I'd gone from to. So what's the deal with